LU creates an Economic Development Advisory Council. OPSEU members rally the province. And a deadly collision in Ottawa between a train and a bus. Good evening and thank you for joining us. The who's who of the region's business leaders are part of a new team formed by Lakehead University. LU President Brian Stevenson announced the creation of his Advisory Council on Economic Development today. The group is comprised of people from the private sector and the Aboriginal community. Dennis Ward has more on their role.
The heads of some of the city's biggest employers and up-and-coming industries are now part of a new council to help move the city and region forward. Lakehead University President Brian Stevenson says they will provide him with advice on the direction of the institution and areas of the economy that need support.
Right now, there is a lot of need for the university to support the mining industry or the recovery of the forestry industry, and we have a great natural resource faculty that works a lot on that, and we have a wonderful group of people that work on the mining side.
The President's Advisory Council on Economic Development, or PACE, includes 16 people. They are local leaders in industries such as transportation, mining, banking, and construction. Northco Group CEO Harvey Cardwell will act as vice chair of PACE. He says the advisory committee is being formed at a critical time for Thunder Bay.
5 years ago, I thought we were overly pessimistic. We were licking our wounds from the loss and slowdowns in some of our industry. We've moved on from that now. I believe now we have a good degree of optimism here.
Cardwell believes there are a lot of bright spots in the local economy, and Lakehead University needs to identify the opportunities and build around them. LU is already the city's second largest employer, but Stevenson wants the institution to play a more central role. The council's first order of business was reviewing the results of a sector-by-sector survey conducted over the past year. Dennis Ward, TBT News.
Developmental service workers from around the city held a rally at MPP Bill Morrow's office today. It was held to show solidarity with OPSEU workers marching at Queen's Park in Toronto. OPSEU currently represents more than 10,000 developmental service workers across Ontario who provide support to people with disabilities and their families. The rallies are meant to show the realities of working in the sector and what it's like to depend on the services provided. OPSEU Rep Ken McClung works with the Community Living Thunder Bay. He says a province-wide wait list of 23,000 people is an indication of the systemic underfunding. That list includes 400 local people with nowhere to go. He says there are empty beds and facilities across the province because the government won't give them the necessary funds for services, programs, and staff, and adds this is a growing issue that affects the entire community.
The people on the wait list, some of the families can't support their child anymore, and the only way that the government guarantees service is to legal wards of the Crown. So lots of families are ending up having to give away legal custody of their adult dependent children in order to get them into support. They have nowhere to go. It's sad.
MPP Bill Morrow was in Toronto today, but in a telephone interview, he says the developmental sector has seen a shift to more community-based accommodation, and he admits the funding hasn't kept up. He says his government feels there needs to be more done in that sector, and he'll be visiting community-based homes when he returns to the city to see what he can do. Well, it's been exactly 1 year since a human rights complaint was filed against the Thunder Bay Police Service, and now a mediation process is underway between police and the Anishinaabe Nation. The dispute began after an internal email was accidentally sent to Thunder Bay media. The email stated that the fresh breath killer had been captured in Kenora. It was mistakenly sent in relation to the homicide investigation of 65-year-old Adam Yellowhead. City Police had launched their own internal investigation in the email, but shortly after that investigation began, the Anishinaabe Nation hired Toronto lawyer Julian Faulkner and filed a human rights complaint. NAN officials called the email dismissive, racist, and a sign of systemic mistreatment of First Nation victims. Now, 1 year later, the process is moving along.
We're in the midst of mediation, and it's a confidential process. And what's hoped is that everyone can learn from this exercise. And what's hoped is we can start healing the relationship between First Nations and the Thunder Bay Police.
Faulkner couldn't say when the mediation process began or when it will end. City Police also would not comment on the mediation process. The OPP has recovered the body of a missing hunter near Ear Falls. 22-year-old Tyler Mills disappeared last Wednesday after falling out of a boat while duck hunting on the English River. His body was found this morning after an exhaustive search of the river. The other man in the boat, who also fell overboard, was able to make it to shore. He spent the night in the bush before making contact with passing fishermen. Postmortem is to be performed in Kenora. The province's Education Quality and Accountability Office has released its annual student achievement results. Grade 3 and 6 students from every school in the province were tested in reading, writing, and math. And while Thunder Bay Catholic school students scored above the provincial average in every category, those enrolled in Lakehead District schools continue to lag behind. Ryan Bonazzo has the full details.
Director of Education Joan Powell is thrilled with the latest EQAO results. The report shows that a higher percentage of students in the Thunder Bay Catholic schools are performing at or above standard levels when compared to the rest of the province. The numbers, however, don't look as good for the Lakehead board. They're below the provincial average across the board among grade 3 students. 64% of Lakehead students are reading at or above the provincial standard, 73% in writing, and 61% in math. It's a similar story when you look at the 6th grade test results. Lakehead students below the provincial average in every statistical category, with Catholic students thriving. 79% of Catholic school students read at or above standard levels. They also posted numbers of 80% in writing and 60% in mathematics, all above provincial levels. And there are several reasons why, says Powell.
First of all, the concentrated efforts of our students who are working hard, our outstanding staff, that's our teachers, our principals, and our board staff, and of course our parents who really support the work in our schools. Secondly, I think our success is due to our school environments. We have a huge emphasis in Thunder Bay Catholic schools on student well-being.
Meanwhile, Lakehead Director of Education Kathy Semenuk is highlighting the positives. She says when you look at the numbers over the last 5 years, they're trending upwards. And both board officials agree the EQAO numbers don't tell the whole story.
Certainly, we do take a look at our results trending over time. We take a look at the student questionnaires, but it really is the classroom teachers' results, report card marks, other data that we collect at the school that we look at as well when we're providing information to schools. And schools are analyzing that data. They're using the data to create school improvement plans. We ask our parents to be involved through school councils.
The city's top performing school based on the total scores for grade 3s and 6s is the Catholic Board's Corpus Christi. The board's lowest performing school is Our Lady of Charity. Meanwhile, the top performing public school is Norwesterview, with McKellar Park Central performing at the lowest level. Ryan Bonazzo, TBT News.
A large chunk of city-owned land has been sold off for $750,000. Earlier this year, the city declared about 10 acres of property surplus. The city's Realty Services Department believed that was enough land to accommodate as many as 600 new apartment units. The deal approved this week is for 3.5 acres of land near the corner of Balsam and Huron Avenue. The property is already located in a residential area near a school and apartment buildings. The purchaser, Erickson Heights Limited, has yet to publicly state the intended use for the land. But Realty Services Manager Joel Laputer says the agreement was not conditional on rezoning. The current uses include commercial, institutional, and would also allow for apartments to be constructed.
The zoning permits medium-density residential development, and that would be somewhere between 130 to 150 units.
The $750,000 will go into a land development account used for strategic projects. DePuter says that could include money for the proposed event center. City Council will ratify the deal on September 30th. A special job fair was held today to connect skilled people with disabilities with job opportunities in the region. The Independent Living Resource Center hosted their second annual Tapping into Potential job fair. The event is not only for potential job seekers, it also assists employers by educating them on the benefits of hiring persons with disabilities. Around 30 employers participated in the annual event. Employment facilitator Alexa Shermack says it gives people with disabilities an equal opportunity to meet employers and see what options they might have.
People just aren't aware of what's available in Thunder Bay, and there are so many people who are willing to give support, so many people who are here to help, to give you connections, to help you set up accommodations, set up support, that really it's just a great chance for people to come out and see what's available to them.
Shermack says they hope the job fair will continue to grow in the future and adds it's rewarding to see employers willing to accommodate those with disabilities. Well, Magnus Theatre kicks off its 42nd season tomorrow night, and the opening production is expected to be quite a showstopper. The Buddy Holly story takes the audience back to life in the 1950s when rock and roll was born. Courtney Rutherford has this sneak peek.
Sir, it's like I'm changing all those changes. Decca forced us into playing it a way that we didn't want to play.
It's a chance to step back into the golden age of rock and roll. The Buddy Holly story revolves around a young man as he makes the journey from a country singer in Texas to a full-fledged rock and roll superstar, living the dream in New York City.
The excitement is going to be very high in the theater. I really feel that. We've had a great time rehearsing the show. It's really a hot show, and I'm very, very proud of it. Very proud of our cast. I feel that we're ready and set to go. They're just chomping at the bit to have an audience out there, because that's the final component, is to get an audience in the theater to experience the show.
Okay, so why don't you boys show me what you mean? Yeah? Okay, sure.
There's a number of 50s classics that are expected to get the audience dancing, from Peggy Sue and That'll Be the Day to the anthem of rock and roll, Ray Vaughan. The 13-person cast will take audiences on a roller coaster of emotions. Jeff Gill plays Buddy Holly, and he says it was awesome to play someone who he believes was a pioneer for rock and roll music.
Whenever you're playing a historical character, there's of course a lot of research into who that person actually was. Trying to find as much print material, video, audio material as you can. With Buddy Holly, there's a few television performances. There's a small number of live performance clips. There's a number of radio interviews. So it was listening to all of those and watching all of those and really trying to get a good sense of who who I thought the person was.
The preview performance kicks off Thursday night, and a gala performance is scheduled for Friday. The play runs until October 5th. Courtney Rutherford, TVT News.
42 people who have come from all over the world were sworn in today as the country's newest Canadian citizens. Each of them took the oath and then joined together to sing the national anthem. The judge swore each of them in and encouraged everybody to take full advantage of their right to vote and to continue volunteering. He wished them well in their new life and to never forget where they originally came from. There are a number of requirements, and it's a lengthy application process to prove they have a knowledge of Canada and what it offers.
Honestly, I'm an immigrant like them. I came to Canada in 1983, and as you can tell by my accent, I still didn't get rid of quite of my old roots. To me, it was a very important day. I came to this country not on a whim. I chose it carefully. I think this is the best country in the world, and I think the fact that I am a citizenship judge now speaks to it the best.
I was an American by birth. I'm a Canadian by choice. So yes, I got very teary-eyed during O Canada. And yeah, it really, really hit my heart. I'm so happy to be a citizen.
It will take 2 days for the final paperwork to be filed, and then all of the citizens are able to apply for their Canadian passport.
And those new Canadian citizens got a pretty good taste of what is going to transpire this fall. Sort of dreary, but a little bit milder than we thought it would be, Fiona.
Yeah, it was a very mild day, but not quite the sunshine we were hoping for. The sun or the clouds rolled in a little bit faster than expected. We did top out with a high of 18, not quite the 19-20 we were aiming for, and that's with winds very light, just 10 kilometers per hour from the south-southeast. At this hour, we're at 17 Celsius, and across the region, it just kind of goes up from there. 17 in Armstrong, but 18 in Upsala, 20 in Atikokan and Dryden, 21 in Red Lake, but clouds pretty much across the board. It's a very gray day in northwestern Ontario. Now, tonight, actually, first thing in the morning, but it'll still be dark, we're going to have a harvest moon. It's also known as the barley corn or fruit moon at 7:13 a.m. in the morning when you first get up. However, you probably are not going to have a very good time seeing it because there is a possibility of a shower, even a possible thunderstorm overnight tonight. Another very mild night indeed, a low of 14 is expected. But those showers and possible thunderstorms are expected to continue well into Thursday and even Thursday night. They could be quite severe at times. The rain also could be quite heavy, so we're keeping an eye on the development of that low. But get ready for some umbrellas and galoshes weather. It's on its way.
All right, thanks, Fiona. Well, a deadly crash in Ottawa involving a Via Rail passenger train that has claimed several lives. We have details on that story for you coming up right after the break.
There were some screams or stop for him to stop at just before.
The gate was down. Went right through it. Yeah.
The gate was down.
Yeah.
There's been a deadly collision between a Via Rail passenger train and an Ottawa city bus. 6 people were killed and more than 30 others were injured in the crash, some of them critically. Lori Graham has the details.
The double-decker bus is upright, but the front end was sheared away. What's left is scattered on the track. The impact derailed the Via locomotive.
The bus broke suddenly, Fortunately, I was holding onto the seat in front of me.
It happened just after 8:45 this morning. The double-decker bus was approaching this crossing when the collision happened. Greg Meck was on the upper deck and could hear passengers try to warn the driver.
There were some screams or stop for him to stop just before. He may have braked at the last moment. I did not feel that. And the bus actually hit the train dead on.
Alex Bejin was sitting on the lower deck.
The gate was down, went right through it. Yeah.
The gate was down.
Yeah.
There were no major injuries on the Via Rail train. Passengers were escorted off, luggage and all. Janet Weatherstone was sitting in the back when the crash happened.
It was bumpy, and then I just saw the bus was right there.
This man was traveling with his child.
I feel very bad for the driver, the bus driver. I heard he was fatally injured, yes.
The driver and 5 others on board the bus were killed. The injured were taken to surrounding hospitals.
It's the largest number of fatalities involving a train bus.
Investigators are combing the scene, gathering evidence, trying to determine what happened. Eyewitnesses say the crossing gates were down and the lights were flashing.
It happened so fast. I thought that the bus was in a safe zone, parked. I didn't realize it was on the track.
The Transportation Safety Board took these photos of the crash site, trying to piece together what happened.
We're assessing the situation right now, and we're going to decide how we're going to proceed with this as the evidence and as stuff comes forward.
Investigators say they're looking at everything from whether the crash was caused by human error or mechanical. Other bus drivers blame the double-decker bus.
We avoid the buses because they're top-end heavy, they're easy to tip, they're very heavy to stop.
The crossing is also being called into question. It's at a low level, and people in Ottawa have long complained it's a safety risk. Lori Graham, CBC News, Ottawa.
A team of investigators from the Transportation Safety Board has been combing through the wreckage of today's collision. They say it's too early to determine what happened in this crash, but they have raised concerns in the past about level crossings. Thomas Daigle has more on that.
It's a familiar sight and sound. In towns from coast to coast, level crossings where rail meets road. There's no word on what caused today's crash, but over the past decade, trains and vehicles have collided at level crossings more than 250 times. As early as 2001, the Transportation Safety Board urged Transport Canada for tougher regulations at level crossings.
It's one of the biggest risks that the investigators and the board consider a top of mind and ongoing, so they haven't been fixed.
The TSB says the risk is just too high, especially at level crossings between Quebec and Ontario.
Where you have a lot of high-speed trains, they can go up to 160 kilometers an hour, and there have been occasions where they've struck heavy vehicles.
In 2010 in Edmonton, this car was crushed by a Via train. A man and his 2 young daughters didn't survive. Last year near Windsor, Ontario, 2 sisters, 3 and 6 years old, died after a freight train slammed into the family's minivan. The railway crossing had no safeguards, only a sign warning motorists to stop. At the site of today's crash, there was a rail barrier.
We consider all of our crossings safe or they wouldn't be there.
And witnesses say the barrier was down when the bus and train collided. Experts say such barriers should be lowered at least 20 seconds before the train goes by. Just one of the factors the TSB will investigate.
We have a watch list for crossing accidents with via train, so certainly this type of investigation is going to get a priority from the Transportation Safety Board.
The TSB hopes the information gathered at today's crash site will help improve rail safety across the country. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Montreal.
There is plenty of fallout tonight from news that an online dating ad had been using a photo of Rehtaeh Parsons. The company has stopped and they've been banned from Facebook. But if you're worried about the security of your image online, you're not alone. Elizabeth Chu has more.
Rehtaeh Parsons' picture used countless times in Facebook memorial tributes and in news stories. Now used in an ad for a dating website. Not once, but twice.
Disturbing, like you have your photos on Facebook and whatnot, and then
just to find that like someone else has used them, and it's unfortunate, especially in her case.
Parsons' story grabbed headlines worldwide when she took her own life in April after she said she'd been raped and cyberbullied with a photo of the attack. Her image copied in an advertisement created by i1chat.com and seen on Facebook, which has pulled the ad and apologized. So how did i1chat.com, based in Vietnam, choose Parsons' photo? The company tells the CBC it simply searched Canadian girl's profile, and sure enough, Parsons' photo, along with many other women, popped up. With a click to copy and paste, and just like that, you've created an online ad.
Just a person sitting at home who's running an ad online on Facebook. They spend a little bit of money to hope that they make a lot more money back.
Social media analyst Giles Crouch says with Parsons' picture so pervasive, he isn't shocked this happened.
The big issue is how do you control these things? And you can't.
Christine Oreskovich runs an online dating website. She's rejected a few photos and profiles that didn't seem quite right.
I mean, it's hard to say that when this person sends in a photo, it's them. It's a gut check at our level.
It's got these women thinking twice about posting photos on social media.
I've even Googled myself to see what comes up, and I mean, there are Facebook photos that pop up.
And then there's this, a Facebook page for Blanche that uses Parsons' photo. Elizabeth Chu, CBC News, Halifax.
New information shows the federal government was warned by its own advisors that a huge shipbuilding contract was overpriced. The contract was signed in March of this year with Irving Shipbuilding of Halifax. It involves building Arctic patrol ships. As Terry Molesky reports, the government's outside experts found the price very high.
It is a huge deal for Irving Shipbuilding in Halifax. AOPS, the Arctic offshore patrol ships, mean a gusher of government money, just over $3 billion in all.
Here at the Irving Shipyard, you are making history, and darn good ships.
The first phase, $288 million, was announced this year, but that's not to actually build any ships. It's just to design them and prepare to build them. Critics said that price was too high. The government denied it, but now CBC News has obtained an expert report commissioned by the government, which agreed the price was, quote, very high and some items extraordinarily high. But still, the report had little impact. It was handed in on March the 5th, but just 2 days later, the deal was signed anyway. The expert review by International Marine Consultants of Vancouver said Irving's estimate was very high and considerably more than we would have expected for a shipbuilding program for vessels of the size and complexity of the AOPS. IMC's report compared it to other ships with ice capability, like this American ship, the Sikuliak, launched this year for use off the coast of Alaska. It cost $200 million to design and build, less than the $288 million that Canada's paying just to get ready to build its patrol ships. Opposition critics say the government should have listened.
They did, as you say, have an independent review done. They hired somebody who had knowledge about shipbuilding. He asked the right questions. He told them what they needed to ask. They just didn't follow through, and they just didn't listen.
I can say that hardly a day goes by, but there isn't yet another debacle with this government's military procurement.
So far, both the government and Irving have chosen not to comment. But in the past, they have conceded that the upfront cost may be high, but that it'll pay dividends in the long run and create plenty of jobs. Terry Molesky, CBC News, Ottawa.
A new survey on mental health suggests some Canadians who seek treatment don't always get it in a timely way or can't afford it. Kim Bruneber has that story.
About 5 million Canadians say they need mental health care. That's 1 in 6 of us.
On one hand, it's tough being that 1 in 6, but you also don't know who around you has it. It really is that invisible illness.
Anxiety, depression. Arthur Gallant has languished on waiting lists, struggling to get help.
It just shows you strength in numbers, just how many Canadians are seeking treatment for their mental illness.
A new snapshot of the Canadian mental health landscape found about 1/3 of those who say they need mental health or addiction treatment feel they aren't getting enough or aren't getting any at all. And even those numbers, experts say, don't tell the whole story. Certain groups like Aboriginal people, members of the armed forces, and those living in institutions weren't included in the survey of 25,000 Canadians. And many people, experts suggest, wouldn't admit having a mental health problem in the first place.
This report is done on the basis of self-reporting, which when you consider stigma and all of those factors where people don't really want to talk about mental health or addictions issues.
I'm basically coming to gather some.
Dr. Ian Daw hears it from his patients all the time. If you want a pill, he says, well, you can get that right away. If you need counseling, different story.
This study really speaks to unmet needs outside of the medication realm, and I think that's very consistent with what we're hearing.
More psychologists are needed, he says, but even if there were more available, many people who need them can't afford them.
So if I have to see a therapist twice a week, that's approximately a week's worth of work for me. That's my entire income. And
Experts say governments have to start giving mental health the same priority as physical health. And in the private sector, companies need to do more for their employees.
We know that today in Canada, 500,000 people didn't go to work because they're struggling with their mental health. We know that annually that's a $6 billion hit to our economy.
Gallant feels mental health care has become a two-tiered system. The numbers in this report, he says, offers no hint of the pain felt by those left behind. Kim Brunhuber, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, if you have a flight today on Porter Airlines, you may want to call ahead. A computer outage left many travelers stranded last night. Porter says 41 flights were canceled yesterday, along with another 6 this morning. A computer network outage hit the airline's booking system. For the break, let's take a look at activity on the markets. In Toronto, the TSX gained 97 points to 12,931. The Dow climbed 147 points to 15,676. And the Nasdaq racked up nearly 38 points to 37.83. The Canadian dollar was up 7 cents to 97.83 cents US. Gold slipped $1.80 to $1,307 an ounce. And oil was up $2.65 to $108 per barrel.
Well, when you take a look at the gymnasts in the Olympics, those kids seem to get younger and smaller and smaller and smaller. Seems to be the case in a lot of sports, but there are still a few sports where aging, like a fine wine, they just seem to last forever.
Yeah, like Gordie Howe, Mr. Hockey, played well into his 50s, and we're about to tell you about a local baseball player who's got a dream to fulfill, and he's been playing baseball longer than I've been doing the sports here.
Not possible.
It is possible. That's a long, long time, believe me. Well, there are many examples of older athletes being able to play their respective sports at a high level. In the NHL, look no further than Teemu Selanne and Jaromir Jagr on the ball diamond. The best closer in baseball, it's Mariano Rivera's final season. But there's also a local athlete who fits that bill. After 43 years of at-bats and chasing down fly balls, Warren Philp finally has a chance to pursue a dream. Matt Scooby has that story.
At 53 years old, Warren Philp is still playing the game he loves at a competitive level.
It just takes you back to childhood and the skills that you learn as a kid, and if you feel like you can still exhibit those skills, difficult skills in the game of baseball, but if you feel you can still contribute somehow to a team, I think, try to do it as long as you can.
Philp plays for the Coastal Steel Orioles in the local senior men's league. He's the oldest player in the league, but it's not the other guys on the field giving him a hard time for that fact.
More from the spectators than the players. I think the players are maybe, a little shy about doing that. Behind my back, I have no doubt that that's happening, but whatever. I just think it's an opportunity to play baseball. It's the only place to play. If we were in Minneapolis, there's a 10-team over 50 league. So I'd probably be playing in one of those teams if I was in Minneapolis, but I'm not. And still got the desire to play a little bit. I got a special reason to want to play this year in particular.
And that reason is the Roy Hobbs World Series. After a chance meeting in the Toronto airport last fall, Philp will suit up for the Nova Scotia Merchants in the Legends division of the week-long tournament in Fort Myers, Florida this November. And believe it or not, he's one of 3 underage players on the 55 and over team.
I guarantee at least one game at either the Twins spring training complex or the Red Sox spring training complex, and a game a day, and you go hard for 6-7 games and see what's left of your body, I guess.
Philp was an integral part of getting the World Juniors to Thunder Bay 3 years ago. In the 90s, he helped run the team he now plays for, and after that helped organize an over 30 team that played in the local league for 10 years. Baseball has been his passion for over 40 years, and he's hopeful he might start a new trend.
Maybe this will spark some interest in another old-timers team. I really don't know, but we'll see.
Matt Scooby, TBT Sports.
Well, the Daytona Dodgers have taken a 2-1 series lead in their senior men's baseball semifinal, drubbing the on-deck A's 7-1. Brad Crocker had a pair of hits. Tonight at 7 at Baseball Central, it's a must-win for the Boston Pizza Red Sox, who trail Warren Philp's Coastal Steel Orioles 3-1. Off to the majors last night, Colby Rasmus opens the scoring. This will be home run number 3 in as many games since coming off the disabled list. It's a no-doubter in the 4th off Andy Pettit. In the 5th, the Jays will try and add some insurance to that, but with a runner at second, Curtis Granderson. Watch him take a hit away from the Canadian kid, Brett Laurie, with some carpet cleaning. That's cleaning the carpet. With 2 Jays in the nest in the 6th, Pettit kept his team in it. He'll ring up Ryan Goins for the strikeout. Still 1-zip Toronto. They'll convert to the 7th off Sean Kelly. Roger Davis goes deep to left for a solo shot, his 6th homer, and it's 2-zip. Casey Jansen comes on to save it for R.A. Dickey. He'll strike out Ichiro. You don't see that often with a Yankee at first. That'll end it. Toronto takes the series opener 2-zip. The high school varsity boys volleyball season opened last night. Churchill and St. Ignatius would post sweeps over Hammersholt and Dennis Franklin Cromartie, respectively, while Westgate edged St. Pat's 2-1. Week 13 in the CFL kicks off Friday with Winnipeg hosting Edmonton. Sunday, the game of the week has Saskatchewan entertaining BC. Both teams will be missing big-name players. Riders running back Corey Sheets out with a knee injury, while Lions quarterback Travis Lulay will miss 2 games with a shoulder injury.
He's hurt. Trouble. His throwing shoulder's been hurt. The visual evidence doesn't look too favorable for Travis Lulay starting in Regina this weekend. Lulay was injured late in Sunday's victory over Montreal when he shouldered his way into the end zone. It was a valiant effort, but one that's likely to cost BC the services of their starting quarterback. Question is, for how long?
The only thing that was encouraging last night is there was some range, so the doctors felt good about that. And obviously this morning was really stiff and tight, but until we get anything further, I don't know any more than you do right now. When I talked to him and Billy picked him up and they went in to go do what they had to do, he was pretty sore and tight, but you know, there was still some movement that Billy was encouraged about. So we'll have to see. We'll get the images and then figure it out.
Offensive staff gave us a great game plan tonight, fellas. You guys see what we can do when we just do our job. But I'm going to give this ball to Thomas DeMarco, steps in, throws it.
It was symbolic that Travis Lulay gave Thomas DeMarco the game ball because he could quite possibly have Lulay's starter's job as well. DeMarco mopped up the final minutes of the fourth quarter and threw down some starter's polish. He went 4 of 6 for 47 yards, threw a touchdown pass, and carried the ball 3 times for 13 yards. It's the kind of relief performance that coaches love to see from a guy who normally only gets in sporadically on short yardage situations.
Getting the last 6 minutes, it's nice to be able to get out there, see what you can do, be with the guys, you know, have the live bullets. It's an experience I'm not used to getting, and it's something I'm as excited to have happen.
The biggest thing for me right now is Thomas has done everything that we need him to do. So why not? He's the best prepared. He's been here longer. But we're certainly, as I told him, once we get together again on Wednesday, I'll have a better formulation of what the game plan is, how we attack the opponent. You know, that's kind of how it is right now.
Having Lulay on the sidelines also gives the Lions the options of using both DeMarco and Buck Pierce. It's something head coach Mike Benavides has already openly discussed, but that would require some major university playbook cramming by Pierce, who's been in BC for all of a week. Jay Janower, Global Sports.
And there was a big NFL trade made late this afternoon. The Cleveland Browns have sent running back Trent Richardson to Indianapolis for a first-round draft pick. To hockey now. Well, stop me if you've heard this one before. The Toronto Maple Leafs say this year's team is the best group of players they've had in a long time. Sure. Barry made you say that, didn't he? That's the same sense of excitement before every season, but why is this year different? Rob Leth explains.
It's only the preseason and the points don't count in the standings. But for Toronto native David Clarkson, the Maple Leafs' biggest acquisition in the offseason, it's a first chance to wear the blue and white in front of the hometown fans.
I obviously look forward to the season to start, regular season, but it's always the first time putting that jersey on is pretty special, and looking forward to it.
Clarkson joins a promising young team looking to recover from one of the biggest playoff collapses in NHL history, blowing a 3-goal lead in Boston in the third period of Game 7.
When you're up by that 3 goals with 10 minutes left, you should never lose a game like that. So that's tough to see, especially you're maybe thinking, well, that could be us when you see the Bruins playing in the finals.
Obviously, it's something that is pretty tough to forget and gives you a lot of motivation. But in the end, I think it's something that'll, we learn from, and it'll help us in the future.
For the Leafs Nation, the future is now. A fan base hopeful that the Buds can avoid taking a step backward before evolving into a legitimate contender for the Stanley Cup.
They made a lot of good moves this summer, picking up David Clarkson, David Bolin, Bernier as well. It's going to be a good competition in net. So they made a lot of moves that will solidify the team.
I'm still unsure about the Grabowski buyout. I've got the Grabowski sweater, but, it seems like we've got Gardner back in there and a good defense. And if Bernier can be what people say he is, we might got something.
The task for head coach Randy Carlyle is to find the right mix of players to help achieve that goal.
I know what it's like as a veteran player. Training camp's not a lot of fun. But the reality is our preparation has to get to a higher level for October 1, for our first game.
And that first game will take place in Montreal on October 1st against the Canadiens. And hopefully this is the year for the Leafs because, as we all know, the team is overdue.
That reminds me, I've got to bring a book back to the library. It's overdue.
All right.
It just sort of reminded me.
Well, kicking off our lineup tonight, we have a new season of Survivor with a few extra twists. With more, here's Teletalk.
Tonight on Global Thunder Bay, the reality is we've got a season premiere and a finale. Starting at 8 on Survivor Blood vs. Water, castaways must compete against their loved ones. Then at 9:30 on the finale of Big Brother, one house guest will win $500,000. Over on CKPR Thunder Bay, we've got big dreams and an even bigger escape. Starting at 8, an artist hopes that her Disney dream doesn't turn into a nightmare on Dragon's Den. Then at 9 p.m. on Republic of Doyle, a prison break floods the streets with escaped convicts. And at 11:35 on George, former diplomat Ken Taylor talks the truth about Argo. Teletalk is brought to you by Points, the traffic ticket specialists.
Well, during the break, we were actually talking about turning on our heat for the first time for the season. And it's probably a good idea because we are going to see some chillier temperatures and even some rain on the way, Fiona.
Well, some rain on the way, chilly temperatures, got about another 24 hours. I'll say that much. Today we hit a high of 18 Celsius, and that was with a fair amount of cloud cover, but there's definitely some cool air on the way. Take a look at what's going on in the west. Vancouver, not a bad day. They're currently seeing some sunshine. They're at 18, 16 in Prince George. Looks pretty good. Then we step back and take a look at what's going on in Alberta. There is a frost warning pretty much across the province. No surprise, Edmonton is currently at 8. Calgary has rain and they're currently at 7 Celsius. Even Saskatoon and Regina, which have been enjoying very mild temperatures, in fact, above seasonal for much of the last week, have dropped down below seasonal. Cloudy skies, Saskatoon at 13 and Regina currently at 12. There's also very heavy rain on the way for Regina. They could see anywhere up to about 10 millimeters overnight tonight. Meanwhile, in Winnipeg at 21, they topped out with a humidex of 26 today, and that's even with a touch of rain this afternoon. Now, Toronto is also enjoying a warm-up. They've definitely improved since yesterday's high of 15. They're currently at 20 Celsius with lots of sunshine. Similar improvements in Ottawa and Montreal and even Quebec City, and there's more heat on the way. They're expecting about low 20s for the next couple of days. Meanwhile, when we head to the Maritimes, I tell you, this time of year, you know we're getting into the change of season because you see the sun going down a little bit earlier and the moon starts popping out across the country. So Fredericton, currently sunny skies and 17, 15 in Charlottetown, Halifax 17. Clear skies and definitely more to come with more heat. Meanwhile, in St. John's, 12 Celsius. It was another very gusty day for much of Newfoundland. Now, this warm front has pushed into the region today, and it moved a little bit higher north than originally expected. This low, the center of this trough, is bringing in a fair amount of precipitation with it from the west, and that's going to move in tonight and into tomorrow. We could see some more rain. It's going to move out, and behind it, we've got a little bit of trailing rain for Friday as well. So it's a good 36-hour system that we're keeping an eye on. Temperature-wise, we're in the high teens, maybe low 20s for much of the region. Tonight, very mild, definitely above seasonal, staying within the teens for most areas. Tomorrow, we'll have another repeat above seasonal temperatures for the majority of northwestern Ontario. But as we get into Friday and definitely into Saturday, you can see that cool air pushing down. It's going to be a real change, and that's where you may need to turn on the the furnace in your home. Now, tonight, could see showers, could see some thunderstorms across the region, and tomorrow, well, this doesn't mean it's going to rain all day, but there's a good chance you're looking at clouds and periods of rain, and there's a definite potential for some thunderstorm activity, but very, very warm temperatures indeed, a good 3 or 4 degrees above the norm for this time of year. At this hour, we're at 17 Celsius under cloudy skies. Tonight, a low of just 14, but could have a light show or two overnight. As you head off to work or head off to school, as the situation may be, 16 Celsius is where we're going to start with the day, and periodic showers that will continue throughout the day as we talk about at 20 Celsius, and winds relatively light from the east-southeast for most of the day. About 5 millimeters of rain is expected on Thursday night. Risk of rain on Friday, and there you can see those temperatures dropping. 15 on Friday, 12 on Saturday, but the good news is at least it's drier. 13 Sunday, and 16 Celsius by Monday.
So you should get our umbrellas handy. Yeah.
Definitely keep them along with your galoshes.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, well, after the break, we all know about the show Amazing Race. Well, a group of high school students had their own Amazing Race today throughout the city. Details next. Dennis Franklin Cromartie High School students were racing around Thunder Bay today to learn more about the city. A group of nearly 200 students were separated into groups to navigate the city in an event inspired by the Amazing Race TV show. The goal is to help students orient themselves with community services. Students use Thunder Bay Public Transit to get around to the different community and mental health agencies, as well as the recreation and leisure stops. Teams had to visit 6 out of the 12 community locations on their list and then return to the school and complete their final task.
And one of the things we really want to highlight for them is that there's some high-risk areas in our community, and there's some really safe, fun, pro-social areas in our community. There's also a lot of agencies where our youth can get support and help if they need it.
The Amazing Race is one of several activities the high school is leading to support First Nation students in their transition to our city and culture. It's a fun way to get around the city.
A little bit of a sink or swim attitude, but I think it's probably a lot of fun.
It looked interesting. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Have a great night.